On this day in history, March 7th, 1138, Konrad III von Hohenstaufen was elected King of Germany at Coblenz in the presence of the papal legate Theodwin. Included in the following is an excerpt from the 1944 edition of the Encyclopaedia Britannica going over the life of Konrad. Konrad III, born 1093, died 1152, German king, second son of Frederick I, Duke of Swabia, and Agnes, daughter of the Emperor Henry IV, was the first king of the Hohenstaufen family. His father died in 1105, and his mother married secondly Leopold III, Margrave of Austria. In 1115, his uncle the Emperor Henry V appointed him Duke of Franconia. In 1116, together with his elder brother Frederick II, Duke of Swabia, he was left by Henry as regent of Germany, and when the emperor died in 1125, he became titular king of Burgundy, or Arles. In 1126, he took part in the war between his brother Frederick and the new king, Lothair the Saxon, and was chosen king in opposition to Lothair on December 18, 1127. Hastening across the Alps, he was crowned King of Italy at Monza in June 1128, and in spite of the papal ban was generally acknowledged in northern Italy. The rival popes, Innocent II and Anacletus II, both declared against him. The Romans repudiated him, and after failing to seize the extensive possessions left by Matilda, Marchioness of Tuscany, he returned to Germany in 1132. He continued the struggle against Lothair till October 1135, when he submitted, was pardoned, and recovered his estates. In 1136 he accompanied the imperial forces to Italy in the capacity of standard-bearer, and sought to win the favor of Pope Innocent II. In December 1137 Lothair died, and some of the princes met at Coblenz, and chose Konrad for a second time as German king on March 7, 1138, in the presence of the papal legate. Crowned at Aix-la-Chapelle 6 days later, he was acknowledged at Bamberg by several of the South German princes, but his position could not be strong while Henry the Proud, the powerful Duke of Bavaria and Saxony, refused his allegiance. Attempts at a peaceful settlement of this rivalry failed, and Henry was placed under the ban in July 1138. When war broke out in Bavaria and Saxony, the king was unable to make much headway, in spite of the death of the Duke Henry, which occurred in October 1139, and his half-brother Leopold IV, Margrave of Austria, to whom Bavaria had been entrusted, was defeated by Henry's brother Welf, afterwards Duke of Spoleto and Margrave of Tuscany. Konrad captured the fortress of Weissenberg from Welf in December 1140, and is said to have allowed the women to leave the town, each with as much of her property as she could carry on her back. To his surprise, so the story runs, each woman came out bearing on her back a husband, a father, or a brother, who thus escaped the conquerors. Peace was made at Frankfurt in May 1142, when Henry the Lion, son of Henry the Proud, was confirmed in the Duchy of Saxony, while Bavaria was given to Konrad's stepbrother, Henry Josemgert, Margrave of Austria, who married Gertrude, the widow of Henry the Proud. Affairs in Italy demanded the attention of the king, as Roger I, King of Sicily, had won considerable authority on the mainland and refused to recognize the German king, whose help Pope Lucius II implored against the rebellious Romans. This state of affairs drove Konrad into alliance with the East Roman Emperor Manuel Comnenus, who, in 1146, married his stepsister. But the condition of Germany prevented the contemplated campaign against Roger. The solitary success amid the general disorder in the empire was the expedition undertaken in 1142 by Konrad into Bohemia, where he restored his brother-in-law, Ladislao, to this throne. At an attempt, however, to perform the same service for another brother-in-law, also called Ladislao, who had been driven from his Polish dukedom, ended in failure. Disorder was rampant in Saxony, Bavaria, and Burgundy, and in 1146 war broke out between the Bavarians and the Hungarians. A term was placed to this condition of affairs by the preaching of Bernard of Clairvaux, and the consequent departure of many turbulent nobles on crusade. In December 1146, the king himself took the cross, secured the election and coronation of his young son Henry as his successor, appointed Henry I, Archbishop of Mainz, as his guardian, and set out for Palestine in the autumn of 1147. Marching with a large and splendid army through Hungary, he reached Asia Minor, where his forces were decimated by disease and by the sword. Stricken by illness, Konrad returned to Constantinople at Christmas 1147, but in March 1148 set out to rejoin his troops. Having shared in the fruitless attack on Damascus, he left Palestine in September 1148 and passed the ensuing winter at Constantinople, where he made fresh plans for an attack on Roger of Sicily. He reached Italy by sea, but the news that Roger had allied himself with Louis VII, King of France, and his old opponent, Welf of Bavaria, compelled him to return hastily to Germany. He was obliged to neglect repeated invitations from the Romans, who sent him a specially urgent letter in 1149, and consequently never received the imperial crown. Konrad died on February 15, 1152, at Bamberg, where he was buried. By his wife Gertrude, daughter of Berengar, Count of Sulzbach, he had 2 sons, the elder of whom, Henry, died in 1150. Passing over his younger son Frederick on account of his youth, he appointed as his successor his nephew, Frederick III, Duke of Swabia, afterwards the Emperor Frederick I.